All right, welcome. Today, we are diving deep into a cornerstone of your CIMA BA4 syllabus. Chapter 10, all about business organizations. So, why is this so important? Well, because the legal structure of a company is basically its DNA. It dictates everything: the risk, the potential for growth, the rules of the game. Nailing this stuff isn't just about passing an exam, it's about understanding the fundamental mechanics of how business actually works.
So here's our game plan for today. We're going to kick things off with the three main types of business structures. Then we'll really get into the weeds on the limited company, weighing up all the pros and cons. After that, we'll check out the official company rulebook, its constitution, and then compare public versus private companies. Finally, we'll pull back the curtain on this thing called the corporate veil and wrap it all up with a quick recap and some killer exam tips. You ready? Let's get into it. At its heart, there are really three main ways to structure a business. And the choice you make has massive implications for your risk, your control, and how you can grow. So let's start with the simplest one of all. First up, we have the sole trader. This is the go-to for so many one-person businesses. Think of a freelance graphic designer or your local plumber. Now, the key legal point here is simple, but it is absolutely critical. The law makes no distinction between the person and the business. They are one and the same. And that, as we'll see, has a huge impact on personal risk. Next, we've got the partnership. This is basically just a sole trader structure, but for two or more people. Think of a small local law firm or maybe a veterinary practice. You get to share the profits, you share the decisions, but, and this is a big one, you also share unlimited liability. That means if your business partner runs up a huge debt in the company's name, creditors could legally come after your personal car or house to get paid. It's a serious risk. And that brings us to the real game changer, the limited company. This is a completely different animal. You see, the law treats a limited company as its very own person. It has a separate legal identity, totally distinct from its owners. It can own property, it can sign contracts, it can sue and be sued, all in its own name. This whole idea of separate legal personality is what modern business is built on. And here it is, the single most important difference you need to get your head around: liability. If you're a sole trader or a partner and the business goes under, there's no line between business debt and your personal debt. They can come for your house, your savings, everything. But with a limited company, a legal shield goes up. Your liability is limited to whatever you invested in the company's shares. The business's debts stop with the business. Your personal assets are safe.
So you might be thinking, wow, with a huge advantage like protecting my house, why wouldn't everyone form a limited company? Well, because that protection comes with some pretty serious trade-offs. So let's take a balanced look at the pros and cons.
The advantages are pretty powerful. Limited liability is the headliner, of course. But you also get continuity. The company can exist forever, long after its original owners are gone, which gives it stability. This formal structure also makes it way easier to raise money from banks and investors. They just see it as a more serious, less risky operation. And depending on where you are, you might get some nice tax benefits too. But that protection isn't free. There's always a catch, right? Setting up a limited company is more complicated and costs more money. You've got to register it, and you're suddenly tied to a whole bunch of regulations, like filing your accounts every year. And here's a big one for some people: you lose your privacy. Your company's financial details become public information. All of this extra red tape just means more admin and more cost. At the end of the day, it really just boils down to this one simple trade-off. On one hand, you've got the amazing protection and credibility of a limited company. On the other, you've got the simplicity and privacy of being a sole trader. Choosing the right structure is all about figuring out which side of that equation matters most to you. Okay, so once a limited company is up and running, it needs a rule book. This is called its constitution, and it's basically made up of two key documents that set out exactly how the company has to be managed. First up is the Memorandum of Association. Honestly, this is a super simple one-time document. It's just a statement that the first shareholders sign, saying, yep, we agree to form a company. Think of it as the company's official birth announcement. The second document, and the one that's way more important day to day, is the Articles of Association. Now, this is the detailed living rulebook. This document covers the whole shebang: the rights of shareholders, the powers of directors, how meetings have to be run. This is the user manual that governs the company's everyday life. So an easy way to remember this for the exam is just to think memorandum is the one-time statement that says, we agree to form a company. The articles are the ongoing rules that say, and here's how we're going to run it. Simple as that. Now, just saying limited company isn't actually the full story. It's kind of a broad category, and within it, there are two very distinct types: private limited companies and public limited companies. And knowing the difference between them is absolutely crucial. All the key differences really flow from one single point. Who can you sell your shares to? A private company, which you'll know by the LTD at the end of its name, can only sell its shares privately to people it knows. But a public company, a PLC, can offer its shares to the general public on a stock market. And that one distinction creates all the others you see here: the different name, the much higher capital requirements for a PLC, and way more regulation, because hey, they're dealing with the public's money. So what does that mean in the real world? Well, it's all about raising money. A private LTD company has to find investors in its own network. We're talking friends, family, or angel investors. But a public PLC can tap into a massive pool of money by listing on a stock exchange and selling shares to literally anyone. It's the huge difference between private funding and the public markets. All right, let's look at the core legal idea that makes all of this possible. It's a really cool metaphor called the corporate veil. And it's basically the practical application of that separate legal personality we were talking about earlier. The veil of incorporation is like an imaginary barrier or a curtain that the law puts between a company and its owners. So when the company gets into debt, its creditors can only chase the company's assets. They can't pierce the veil to get to the personal assets of the shareholders. This veil is the legal shield that gives you limited liability. So when you boil it all down, this one concept, this separate legal personality symbolized by the veil, is what makes the modern company as we know it possible. It enables the limited liability that encourages people to invest, it lets the company operate as a stable, independent thing, and it ensures the business can keep going. It's truly the foundation of modern commerce. Okay, great stuff. That covers all the core theory in Chapter 10. So now, let's get tactical. Let's switch gears and focus on how you can turn this knowledge into solid marks on your BA4 exam paper. Here it is, the entire chapter on one slide. First, we've got the business types, where the big dividing line is that unlimited versus limited liability. That creates the trade-off between protection and simplicity. We learned that limited companies are run by their constitution, the memorandum and articles. They come in two main flavors: private and public, which is all about how they raise money. And the whole system rests on that key idea of the corporate veil, which creates separate legal personality. To absolutely nail this topic in the exam, I want you to focus on four things. 1. Know your definitions inside and out, especially limited liability. 2. Practice comparison questions. The examiner loves asking you to compare and contrast a partnership with a limited company. 3. Be ready for short scenarios where you have to apply what you know. And finally, please memorize the list of advantages and disadvantages of incorporation. That's a classic question and a really easy way to pick up marks. And that's a wrap on Chapter 10. By really understanding these fundamental structures, you're not just ready for an exam question, you've now got a crucial lens to see the entire business world more clearly. You have the framework to understand how pretty much any company is built, funded, and run. Go into that exam with confidence. You've got this. Thanks for tuning in.